The morning sun had barely risen when my life cracked open, quietly, like a fragile shell under too much pressure. I remember standing in the narrow courtyard of our small apartment building, my hands trembling as I held the velvet ring box I had bought with money I didn't really have. The moment was supposed to feel magical, victorious even, but instead, it felt heavy, as if every heartbeat carried a new fear. And then my neighbor, Arisha, leaned over the railing and said, "Let me see the ring, it might even fit me." I forced a smile that felt like it was stitched onto my face and replied, "Hold it for me, okay?" handing her the one thing that symbolized the future I wasn't sure I deserved. If you believe kindness and second chances can change lives, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. Your support truly helps these stories reach more hearts. That morning wasn't just about a ring. It was about everything that had led to this point, the loneliness, the quiet heartbreaks, the long nights where hope felt like a dim light flickering in the distance. My name is Ryan, and for most of my life, I lived in the shadow of my own doubts. 5 months earlier, I had lost the job that was supposed to anchor my future. I had been working as an office assistant in a small textile company, and when the owners reshuffled their finances, I was one of the first to go. It wasn't personal, they had said. But everything about it had felt personal. Losing that job meant more than losing a paycheck. It meant losing stability, respect, and in some ways, my sense of worth. In those months, I struggled to find work, bouncing between interviews that ended with polite rejections and temporary shifts at a warehouse that left me exhausted but still barely able to support my mother and younger sister. The bills stacked up like uninvited guests, and sometimes I wondered if life had quietly placed me on its least loved list. But through it all, there was one person who kept showing up, gently, like sunlight slipping through curtains on a hard morning, Nayla, the woman I wanted to propose to. She was calm where I was anxious, warm where I often felt cold inside, and for reasons I never fully understood, she saw something good in me even during the days when I struggled to see anything good in myself. We'd been together for 2 years, and despite the chaos, she never asked for expensive dates, fancy gestures, or perfect moments. She just wanted honesty, effort, and presence. But I had wanted to give her more, a sense of security, a promise she could hold on to, something that showed I was building a future worthy of her. That was why I had bought the ring. A simple silver band with a small gemstone, not flashy, but strong, meaningful. I had saved for months, skipping meals, walking instead of taking the bus, taking on extra warehouse shifts. Every sacrifice had created a belief inside me that maybe the universe wasn't completely indifferent, that maybe it still had room for one quiet miracle. But something had happened that morning. When I woke up, I felt an unexplainable dread, as if the air itself was holding its breath. I found myself pacing, rehearsing what I wanted to say to Nayla, hoping my voice wouldn't crack. Then, while I was stepping outside to catch some air, Arisha from the next-door apartment spotted me. She was older than me by a few years, always dressed in bright colors, always carrying an energy that could either lift you up or shake your nerves. She was friendly, yes, but also curious, too curious at times. When she asked to see the ring, I hesitated. Not because I didn't trust her, but because it felt like handing over a piece of my soul. Still, I didn't want to appear nervous or secretive. So I gave it to her with that forced smile, unaware that this tiny moment would change everything. As she admired the ring, spinning it between her fingers, I looked away for a second to answer a phone call from the warehouse. When I turned back, the ring was no longer in her hand, she was on the ground, panic on her face, searching the floor tiles as if the earth had swallowed it whole. I froze. For a moment, my breath abandoned me. My chest tightened. The world blurred around the edges. Ryan. I dropped it. I'm so sorry. I swear it was right here, she said, her voice trembling. The courtyard suddenly felt like a shrinking box. I knelt beside her, my hands shaking as we searched the cracks between the tiles, beneath the steps, under the small potted plants. Minutes passed. Then 20. Then 30. My heart pounded harder each second, and a bleak heaviness took root inside me. The ring, my months of sacrifice, my symbol of hope, was gone. By the time we stopped searching, my clothes were dusty, my knees ached, and my spirit felt bruised. I wasn't angry at Arisha. I could see how guilty she felt. But guilt couldn't bring back the ring. Guilt couldn't refill the hole that had suddenly formed inside me. I spent the next hour sitting alone on the steps, staring at my hands. They felt empty, like they had been created to hold something important but now didn't know how to exist without it. I didn't tell Nayla about the ring or the proposal I had planned for that evening. Instead, I texted her saying I wasn't feeling well. She replied immediately, her concern woven into each word, and that only made my chest tighten more painfully. The next few days were heavy and slow. I avoided everyone, including Nayla, pretending I was busy with extra shifts. But the truth was, I felt buried under disappointment in fate, in myself, and in my inability to hold on to the one thing that mattered so deeply. Arisha came to me multiple times, apologizing over and over. She even offered to compensate for the ring, but I refused. It wasn't about money. It was about meaning, about what the ring represented. A replacement could never carry the same weight. Yet life has strange ways of surprising us, often when we least expect it. One evening, about a week later, I returned home from a long shift. My clothes smelled of dust and sweat, and my shoulders felt like they were carrying invisible stones. As I entered the courtyard, I found Arisha sitting on the steps with a plastic lunchbox in her hands. She stood up quickly when she saw me. "I have something for you," she said, nervousness stretching across her features. I sighed, exhausted. "Arisha, please, you don't have to keep apologizing. What's done is done." She shook her head. "Just take this." She handed me the lunchbox. Confused, I opened it. Inside was a small silver ring, very different from the one I had bought, but undeniably beautiful. It had a delicate swirl design, almost like two paths crossing and intertwining. It wasn't expensive, but it held a softness, a warmth, as if it had been chosen with care rather than money.